I was asked to talk about business succession strategies, what I call focus your work on the business, not in the business. To get started, we as small business owners we have a goal of building something that we want to sell or pass on to our family later on in our lives. In order to do that, we really need three things. Any guesses?
Family.
Plan.
Good idea.
That's good. That's support.
A business.
A business, yeah, good
Okay,
idea.
Liz got the first one. What else do we need? Successful succession.
You need training and plan.
Right. Yep. And that's kind of the other two. So the three items that we need are a successful business, or why do we want to pass it on or sell it? Number two would be a corporate culture that will thrive and operate successfully even after, and based on core values, even after we've moved out of that system, or now you're tied into it and you can't sell it or turn it over. And the third one is a team that is trained and equipped to handle their individual responsibilities and work as part of a functional team. So we have a lot of companies out there with talented people, but they don't operate as a team, and that dysfunction basically kills a lot of efficiencies. So my focus today is on how Jesus trained and equipped his team while defining the corporate culture and core values of their mission of salvation. So the mission would continue when Jesus was no longer with his apostles. Okay? The business tool is really designed to help you do what Jesus did when he was on earth with his apostles for 3 years. All right, before we get to the featured scripture, I'd like to look at a couple of examples that will make the featured scripture make more sense. So in Mark 3:13-15, we learn that Jesus selected 12 apostles. It's his team, people who he had qualified, and he spent and dedicated the next 3 years instilling his or God's core values, corporate culture, and principles. Jesus was very intentional about modeling prayer, integrity, and his reliance on the Father for guidance in accomplishing God's mission. Jesus expected the apostles to do the same after his return to the Father. Jesus was constantly modeling these attributes and teaching his team, which is really what we need to do if we're looking at that succession strategy. So a couple other examples. In Mark 8:27, Jesus and his disciples were traveling to the villages around Caesarea Philippi. On the way, he asked them, "Who do people say I am?" This is when Peter proclaimed, "You are the Messiah." Jesus wanted them to know that he has the authority given by the Father to lead the mission that they were all on. Also, Jesus demonstrated compassion numerous times. This is a core value in God's corporate culture. In Mark 3:1-5, Jesus noticed a man with a shriveled hand while he was entering the synagogue on the Sabbath. After healing the man, he was challenged by the Pharisees. Instead of defending his actions, he stated, "Which is lawful on the Sabbath? To do good or to do evil? To save life or to kill?" He was demonstrating God's heart for us, not the importance of following rules because they serve the religious leaders, God's core value. Compassion is more important than following rules. In another example of compassion, Luke 13:10-15, Jesus healed a crippled woman on the Sabbath. When challenged by the leader of the temple, he answered, "You hypocrites! Doesn't each of you on the Sabbath untie your ox or donkey from the stall and lead it out to give it water?" Jesus taught his team to look at life from God's perspective instead of being so legalistic. God is concerned about us and what is in our hearts. His team needed to understand compassion for others as a core value that must be part of the corporate culture of growing the kingdom. In Matthew 14:16-21, Jesus again demonstrated care and compassion for people by healing them and feeding 5,000 people with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. The apostles came to Jesus and they asked him to disperse the crowd so they could go find food in the nearby towns. But Jesus replied, "You feed them." He revealed his power and modeled another of God's core values when solving problems. Rely on the Father with faith. This was one of his predecessors, King David, did this quite a bit too, and was quite a successful king over Israel because of it. Later that day, as told in Matthew 14:22-31, Jesus sent the apostles ahead of him in boats while he dispersed the crowds. Near dawn, the apostles saw Jesus walking on the water towards their boat. Peter called, "Lord, if it is you, tell me to come." Jesus said, "Come." Peter stepped out of the boat. He began to walk in faith. Then he rechecked his surroundings. And while his faith was shrinking, he was sinking. He called to Jesus, "Lord, save me." And Jesus reached out a hand and did so. He was using this event to teach the apostles faith. Jesus' response to Peter was, "Why did you doubt?" So reinforcing that message with his team. Jesus was extremely intentional in using events and circumstances to teach and reinforce core values and practices that his team, the apostles, would need to carry out their mission after Jesus returned to the Father. As business owners, you should be doing the same. Seek intentional ways to reinforce core values with your team, and the tool today will be an excellent way of strategizing and teaching them. Kind of lesson one, the corporate culture of an organization is defined by those who lead it. Your employees will follow your lead and the corporate culture and core values you create in good times and bad if they respect you and your integrity and see that your actions are consistent with your statements. The apostles heard and saw Jesus, and they heard and saw the religious leaders. Jesus' actions were very consistent with his words. All right. One last quick little lesson, and then we'll get into the featured scripture. Train your key leaders and do not micromanage them. Instead, be intentional about teaching them and demonstrating the core values you want enforced in your business, then empower them to make decisions without a need to bring every decision to you for approval. As entrepreneurs, we want to control everything. As we start to grow, we need to learn how to delegate, communicate and delegate. And we can't have our employees coming to us all the time, double checking that they're doing the right thing. Empower them. Okay, this builds their confidence and capabilities. They and the company will survive when you are not there to lead it. So you're really setting up your succession plan by using these strategies. All right, John 17:6-12. Jesus prays for his disciples before ascending to heaven. I'm hoping that the scripture that I referenced just now will make this a little clearer as I read it. "I've revealed you to those whom you gave me out of the world. They are yours, you gave them to me, and they have obeyed your word. Now they know that everything that you have given me comes from you. For I gave them the words you gave me, and they accepted them. They knew with certainty that I came from you, and they believed that you sent me." Why? Because Jesus demonstrated his authority and his integrity. "I pray for them. I'm not praying for the world, but for those you have given me, for they are yours. All I have is yours, and all you have is mine. And glory has come to me through them. And if we do the right thing in succession planning, glory will come to us by setting up the right team to either sell or pass on to our families. I will remain in the world no longer, but they are still in the world, and I am coming to you. Holy Father, protect them by the power of your name and the name you gave me, so that they may be one as we are one. While I was with them, I protected them and kept them safe by that name you gave me. None has been lost except the one doomed to destruction, so the scriptures will be fulfilled." So Jesus equipped his team intentionally. Now they're ready to carry on his mission. So this prayer is really after he put in the 3 years of training. Now it's kind of his final send-off. It's kind of like the pregame speech that a coach gives his team before he sends them out on the field. This was Jesus' pregame speech. But he had done all the preparation with his team, which is what we need to continue to do strategically as we go through building our businesses, so that he could make this step. Okay, my main takeaway is Jesus had 3 years of ministry where he was very intentional about training and equipping his apostles to take over his mission of sharing the gospel so Jews and Gentiles would have a way to be with the Lord, with Jesus and his Father. Our tool, the communication loop, that I believe Dr. Kim is going to present to you shortly, this is a tool that you can use intentionally to develop your own teams. Teach them your core values, mold them into your company culture, the same way that Jesus planned for succession for his mission.